Yo, what's up, world? Welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to another episode of Chicago Bears Weekly, Season 7, Episode 2. I am APWSPORTS signing in, and I already gave my video on my thoughts of the signings of Mercedes Lewis, and as well as Yannick Ngakoue. I believe that in the cards. But today, on this episode, we're going to do a little bit of revisionist history on the Chicago Bears. A lot of people are kind of wondering, what is the greatest draft class that the Chicago Bears have ever had? And it made me think, and it made me do a little bit of research. The 1983 draft class that the Bears had that ultimately helped them and propelled them to win Super Bowl 20 in 1985, one of the most dominant seasons in NFL history. We are going to go back and revisit that entire draft class and the class that helped them win that Super Bowl. But before we dive into that, make sure you guys leave this video a like. It continues to help this channel to grow. And make sure you click the sub button and notification bell so you will not miss any of the videos that I post. But let's dive into this 1983 draft class. Without further ado, let's dive into it. Now, before I get into the guys that were actually drafted, this draft class was so good for the Bears that a guy that was eventually undrafted and signed to a rookie deal actually became a starter and a key contributor for the Chicago Bears in 1985 and seasons before and down the line. We're going to talk about a wide receiver, Dennis McKinnon, who was undrafted out of Florida State. Now, the Bears ended up signing Dennis McKinnon to a rookie deal, and he left an impact immediately in his rookie year, as he had 20 receptions for 326 yards and 4 scores, as well as 316 punt return yards and a punt return touchdown. McKinnon will end up spending 6 seasons with the Chicago Bears. He had an impact on every single season that he actually played for the Chicago Bears, with not finishing under 300 yards in any other seasons that he suited up for the Chicago Bears. His 2 best seasons as a Bear came in, of course, the famed 1985 season, where he finished with 31 receptions, 555 yards, and a career-high 7 touchdowns. Now, his best statistical season came in 1988, when he finished with 45 catches for 704 yards and 3 scores. He was a key target for Jim McMahon, Steve Fuller, and the Chicago Bears offense during the tenure of his career with the Chicago Bears. He ended up finishing with 180 receptions, 2,840 yards, and 21 touchdowns. He also amassed 1,171 punt return yards and 3 punt return touchdowns, including 2 during the 1987 season. It is safe to say that the Bears got a ton of value out of a guy that eventually went it undrafted. He came in, they brought him, and he really made an impact, and he really contributed to the Chicago Bears' success during the 1980s. Now let's move on to the guys that were actually drafted in 1983, which made this a very stellar draft class. Now we're going to go with the Bears' first round pick. He ended up being selected 6th overall, and that will be tackle Jimbo Covert out of Pitt. Now, Bears head coach at the time, Mike Ditka, who was also a former Pitt alum, he had this to say about Jimbo Covert. Jimbo's the guy that we wanted from day one. We put him at left tackle and moved on. He continued to say, you don't get too many guys who come along and make that type of an impact right away. He had the respect in all his teammates and all of his coaches, and his impact was felt from day one at that left tackle position, as he would ultimately be named to the all-rookie team in his rookie year. Although the Bears were 22nd in total offense in 1982, the team made a steady improvement with Jimbo Covert at that left tackle position during every single season. Covert as a starter over the next couple of years will start to be better and better, with the team peaking with him at that left tackle position, especially in the run game, in 1985, the, of course, famed season. In addition, the team went from 18th in rushing in 1982 to a league lead for 4 consecutive seasons with him at that starting left tackle from 1983 to 1986. Bears also finished second in rushing twice in 89 and 1990 and third in 1988 during the course of Jimbo Covert's career as a Chicago Bear. He was named to the All-Pro team for 3 straight years from 1985 to 1987. He was also named a first or second team All-NFC selection for 4 years from 85 to 87 to 1990 and a first or second team All-NFL selection 3 different times in his career. Covert was a consensus All-NFL and All-Pro pick in 85 and in 86. He was selected to 2 Pro Bowls, both in 85 and 86. And in 85, he was selected as the NFC's Offensive Lineman of the Year. And in 1986, he would be the NFL's Offensive Lineman of the Year. So to say that he didn't have an impact would be a very big understatement for his career. The Bears and the New York Giants were perennial Super Bowl contenders during that time as they faced each other a lot, especially in 1985 during that playoff season when the Bears shut them out 21-0. Hear this, and this is a crazy thing. During their 3 times that Covert faced with the Giants, you guys remember a guy named Lawrence Taylor for the New York Giants who probably was one of the more dominant, if not one of the most dominant defensive players in NFL history? Well, guess how many sacks that Jimbo Covert allowed? 0 sacks to a guy like Lawrence Taylor. Now, to say that is not too many people in the NFL can say they allowed 0 sacks to Lawrence Taylor each time that they faced him. That is a crazy thing to think about with how dominant Lawrence Taylor was during the course of the 80s in his career with the New York Giants. Covert's last season with the Chicago Bears was in 1990, and as in 1991, he was placed on injured reserve for a back injury, and he ultimately retired from the NFL in 1992. After his career, Jimbo Covert was named one of the 100 greatest Bears of all time, and he finally got that Hall of Fame nod in 2020, which was so long overdue and well deserved. Bears actually had 2 first-round picks in the 1983 draft. With their second first-round pick, they selected at 18 overall, and they ended up drafting Willie Gault out of Tennessee. He was drafted due to his ability at the wide receiver position, and we all know of his world-class speed. His personal best in a 100-meter was a 10:10. That's fast. And his personal best in the 200 meters was 20.68. Talk about speed at that wide receiver position, which it wasn't sought after so much back then, especially in a run-happy league that we had in the 80s. To have that speed at the wide receiver position was a huge game changer for the Chicago Bears. Like Jimbo Covert, Willie Gault will have an immediate impact right away with the Chicago Bears roster and his wide receiving corps, having 40 receptions for 836 yards and 8 touchdowns during his rookie year. During the famed 1985 season, his impact was still being made as he totaled 33 catches for 704 yards and 1 touchdown. I'm not gonna lie, that stat kind of threw me off as he only had 1 touchdown in 85, and that's how dominant that team was. I am not gonna lie, as I was doing research and looking up the stuff for this video, that one was a number that was extremely surprising to me, that he only had 1 score during that entire season. Also in 1985, he had a 577 kick return yards with a score. In the Bears' 46-10 dominant win in Super Bowl 20, Gault had 4 receptions for a game-high 129 yards, and he also had 49 kickoff return yards. In 1986, he continued his steady play with 42 catches for 818 yards and 7 scores. His last season with the Chicago Bears, he had 35 catches for 705 yards and 7 TDs. He was eventually traded to the then Los Angeles Raiders prior to the 1988 season, where he would spend the rest of his career before retiring in 1993. During his career with the Chicago Bears, he had 184 receptions for 3,650 yards and 27 scores. So to say that Willie Gault was a first-round pick that came in, he made his impact felt not only in the wide receiving game, but also in the return game with the speed that he had, was to say that he was a value pick. Now, I personally went back to watch some of those highlights, and I've seen a lot of them. I wish he had a little bit of a better hands, as he didn't necessarily have the greatest of hands, but when he caught the football and when he was able to make things happen, he made his impact felt with the Bears roster that helped that offense propel themselves to one of the bottom passing offenses to one of the better passing offenses during his tenure with the Chicago Bears.
Today's video is brought to you by ExpressVPN. For me, it is very important to have a VPN to protect my online privacy. It'd be very, very creepy if there was someone out there who kept a log of every single thing that you did online. So why let your internet provider really do that to you online? The best thing to do is to get yourself a VPN, and why not go with ExpressVPN, the best VPN available. Personally, I like it for the fact that you can unlock Netflix shows that you do not get in the US market. Now, one show that I've started to get myself into is Brooklyn Nine-Nine. You search Brooklyn Nine-Nine in the US, doesn't come up, but you can switch your location to Canada and you can research Brooklyn Nine-Nine again, and bam, it pops up right then and there, and you can catch up on your episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Now, if you click the link in the description below, you will get 3 free months of ExpressVPN. Just by clicking the link below and you sign up today, you will get 3 months free of ExpressVPN. All you have to do is click the link down below and you will get ExpressVPN. Now, let's just get back to the video.
Their second round pick, number 33 overall, the Bears ended up selecting Mike Richardson, a corner out of Arizona State. Now, this video is only going to focus on what he did on the football field. I'm not going to talk about anything about what he did off of the football field. If you guys want to know that information, Google is right available for you. In this video, we're only going to focus on the things that he did with the Chicago Bears and in a Bears uniform. He became an impactful player at that left cornerback position in that Bears 46 defense that was so blitz heavy that your corners had to be on a little bit of an island, and Mike Richardson was able to hold his own in that Buddy Ryan fame 46 defense. During his rookie season, Richardson will have 5 interceptions during his rookie season with the Bears, and during that said 1985 season, he also had 4 interceptions, which one of them was a pick 6. Richardson was named the All-Pro after the 1986 season, which he finished with his career high of 7 interceptions. He ended up leaving the Bears after the 1988 season to sign with the San Francisco 49ers, where he will only last 1 year, and he ended up retiring after that year. During the Bears career that he had, he ended up with 20 interceptions and a pick 6 for his entire Bears career. So he was one of those guys that second overall pick, he came in, he made an immediate impact. He was able to hold down that left corner spot in a big blitz heavy 46 defense that the Bears had. He was able to really play well. So to say that you get a guy at that 33rd overall pick in the second round, come in, make an impact, was able to be a kind of a shutdown type of a corner, especially in the defense where you're going to blitz so much with some of the packages that they had and you're leaving your corners on islands. He was able to hold his own and make this Bears defense what it was. Of course, he wasn't one of those big time names, but when you look and you study the Bears defense in that time, you had to have corners that were able to cover, and Mike Richardson was the epitome of a cornerback that was able to hold their own and cover on islands. Next pick for the Bears came in the 3rd round with number 64 overall, and they ended up selecting safety Dave Durison out of Notre Dame. Unlike the guys before him, he really didn't have his impact right away as he was switched around between free safety and DB, and he really didn't get a ton of the significant snaps because of guys like Gary Fensick and Todd Bell being the main safeties on the roster at that time. But he did get his big break in 1985 when Todd Bell ended up sitting out the season due to a contract dispute. Dave Durison only saw 6 starts within his first 2 years with the Bears, but the 1985 season really became his coming out party. He totaled 5 interceptions and made 4 consecutive Pro Bowls as one of the harder hitting safeties that he had in the NFL. In the following season, following 85, with his stellar play and his 5 interceptions, he did better than that as he garnered his first All-Pro selection in the NFL with 6 interceptions and as well as 7 sacks during the 1986 season. He earned his second consecutive Pro Bowl and All-Pro selection during the 1987 season, where he totaled 3 sacks and as well as 3 interceptions. His fourth and final Pro Bowl season came in 1988. He had a down year in 89 and he left to sign with the New York Giants after that. And he finished his last 3 years with the then Phoenix Cardinals. During his Bears career, he made 18 interceptions with 16 sacks, made 4 Pro Bowls and 2 All-Pro selections with his time with the Bears. Now, Dave Durson was one of those safeties that he played in a box. They used him, they blitzed him a lot because of that famed 46 blitz scheme. He could do so many things in coverage as well, is why he had those interception numbers that he had during his time with the Bears. So he was one of those very physical box safeties, and as well he can play in the pass game, and his impact was felt from 85 on with that tough, hard-hitting Bears defense. But unfortunately, Dave Durson took his own life in 2011, and it was found out after that he was diagnosed with CTE. You can read more on this story on Google, of course, but I'm only going to talk about the things that he did during the Bears career. I don't want to make this video any darker than what it possibly could be. The 4th straight pick, they picked another player that ended up being a very impactful player for the Bears run in the 1980s, and that would be their 4th round pick, 91st overall, and that would be center Tom Thayer. He came out of Notre Dame as a center, but we all know he transitioned to guard throughout the course of his career with the Bears. Thayer has a funny story behind it. He actually didn't suit up for the Chicago Bears during the first 2 years of his football career. Funny story behind that. Thayer was one of the 25 players selected by the new league, the USFL, new territorial draft, which was held in January of 1983. Funny thing is, the NFL draft was held April 26th and April 27th of that year. But the Bears were unaware that Tom Thayer had already signed an agreement to play with the Chicago Blitz before taking him in the 4th round. According to Thayer, the Bears told me before that I been the 4th round choice in a mock draft, but the Blitz was giving me 1st round money and it was guaranteed. So he ended up spending his first 2 years in the USFL, but he ended up signing his Bears contract in 1985, becoming a fixture at that guard position for the next 8 seasons before being released after the 1992 season. He spent his 1993 season with the Miami Dolphins, but ended up retiring afterwards. Thayer was also named one of the 100 greatest Bears of all time. Now, you can catch Tom Thayer with Jeff Joniak calling the Bears radio broadcast now on ESPN 1000 in Chicago. So he's still involved with the Chicago Bears franchise, and you still can hear him in his opinions and everything about Bears football throughout the course of TV and as well as radio. Even though Thayer was never really an all-pro player, was never really a Pro Bowl player, he didn't make any of those selections throughout the course of his career, he became a mainstay on that Blues Brothers offensive line that was one of the more dominant lines that you had in the 1980s. He also became a mainstay with his 1983 classmate Jimbo Covert, and the next guy we are going to talk about in that 1983 draft class. Another pick was drafted in that 8th round. We only have 7 rounds now, but they had an 8th round pick, 219th overall, and that will be Mark Bortz, a guard out of Iowa. He unfortunately, like Thayer, didn't really hit the ground running in his career. Thayer signed to the USFL. Bortz didn't really get a lot of time until his second season in 1984. He ended up spending his 12-year career with the Chicago Bears and became a mainstay like Covert and Thayer on a dominant offensive line in the 1980s. And he made 2 Pro Bowls throughout the course of his career, and that would be in 1988 and 1990, and as well as 1990 being an all-pro first team selection. He ended up retiring after his 12-year career and was named one of the 100 greatest Bears of all time. I went a little ahead in that draft class. There was also a player that was drafted in the 8th round, and probably the most notable player in the draft class, and probably the best player that ended up being in that draft class, and that was the 8th round pick, 203 overall, and that would be Richard Dent, defensive end from HBCU Tennessee State. He spent his first season in the NFL with the Bears, really adjusting to the 46 defense. He was an 8th round pick coming in. He only had 3 sacks, and he only started 3 games during his rookie year. But 1984 became a huge breakout party for Richard Dent. He totaled his career best at 17.5 sacks, a then franchise record that was broken by Robert Quinn in 2021, which he led the league in forced fumbles as well in the 1984 season and was named to the Pro Bowl, as well as receiving an All-Pro selection. And in the famed 1985 season, he followed that up with 17 more sacks, which actually led the league in that 1985 season. And as well as he led the league in forced fumbles for a second consecutive year, and he had an interception that ended up turning into a pick six in that 44-0 win over the Cowboys. And he wrapped up his second All-Pro and his second Pro Bowl selection during the 1985 season. During the Bears' dominant playoff run in 1985, Dent will total another 6 sacks in the Bears' 3 playoff games, including a sack and a half in Super Bowl 20. And with his stellar play in the Super Bowl, he would end up being named Super Bowl 20 MVP. Following years in 1986 to 1988, seeing Dent still finish with double-digit sacks in each of those 3 seasons. 11.5 in 1986, 12.5 in 1987, and 10.5 in 1988. So he was still that dominant presence up front, still getting after your quarterback and making it a nightmare for the quarterback in the pocket. In that 1988 season, that also came with an All-Pro selection. 89 was the first year that didn't have double-digit sacks as his rookie season, which only saw him finish with 9 sacks in 1989. 1990, he bounced back, made the Pro Bowl for the 3rd time in his career, and as well as him seeing his 4th All-Pro selection. He had a double-digit sacks again in 1991 with 10.5, slowed in 92 with 8.5 sacks. He finished his first Bears tenure in 93 with his 4th and final Pro Bowl, and he had 12.5 sacks. He ended up spending 94 with the San Francisco 49ers. He came back to the Bears in 95. He spent 96 with the Colts, and he ended up finishing his career in 1997 with the Philadelphia Eagles. He retired after that 1997 season. He finished his career with 137.5 sacks, with 124 as a Chicago Bear, which still stands today as the franchise record in a career for most sacks. Now, to say that Richard Dent in the 8th round out of an HBCU finishes one of the greater players in Bears history, I think he's the best player in this draft class, and he was named the 100 greatest Bear, and he finally received his gold jacket in 2011. So overall, this 1983 Chicago Bears draft class was named the number 3 single greatest team draft class in NFL history. This class included 12 Pro Bowl selections, 9 All-Pro selections, with 3 of those being first team selections, and 7 consistent starters who were a part of the Bears' only Super Bowl title in franchise history with the dominant 1985 Chicago Bears, which makes it still depressing that that's only Super Bowl title that the Bears have won without the course of their history. I hate to look back on it and still think about it, but anyway, that is why this class was so good. And then there's another fun fact which makes this even better. The Bears during that time only reserved 2 scouts that went around scouting players. Bill Tolman and Jim Palmer were the only 2 scouts, and they did a very good job picking this 1983 draft class, and it ended up helping the Bears with so much success during the 1980s. Now, it's argued or what's the reasons why the Bears only had 1 Super Bowl during that era. We're not going to get into that today, but you have 7 consistent starters in this draft, 2 Hall of Famers, 12 Pro Bowl selections, All-Pro 9 times, and just so many key contributors to the Bears' defense and offense. You can say that this was the greatest draft class in Chicago Bears history. But that's all I have for today. Make sure you guys leave this video a like, comment your thoughts down below, and don't forget to click the sub button and notification bell. But I'm APW Sports signing out. Make sure you guys stay safe. Have a great next day, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.